She looked me straight in the eye and said, "You should be grateful you were even invited." That was my breaking point. I'm Rachel, and at my sister's engagement party, I was seated outside the ballroom, near the coat rack, like a distant relative, not her only sister. But what happened after I walked away? It changed everything. Not just for me, but for the entire family. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home? Like no matter how quiet you stay, you're still too much, or never enough. I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below, because sometimes it takes just one step out of the hallway to finally be seen. They invited me to the engagement party, sure, but they didn't really want me there. I knew it from the moment I stepped out of my car and handed the valet my keys. The breeze smelled like apple cider and pine, and the golden leaves swirled gently in the air like confetti that had missed its cue. It was early evening, and the lights inside the ballroom had already started to glow. Through the tall windows, I could see silhouettes moving, glasses clinking, laughter rising. It looked perfect, like something from a wedding magazine. I walked up the stone steps of the resort in my forest green dress, the one I had saved for all month. It wasn't flashy, just elegant enough not to look like I didn't try. I checked my reflection in the glass before pulling open the heavy door. Lipstick still intact, hair not frizzy, smile, tight but present. Inside, a young woman in a black dress greeted me with the kind of hospitality that comes with training, not warmth. "Good evening," she said, her voice cheerful. "Name, please." "Rachel Lane," I said. She paused, her fingers hovering over the list. Her eyes darted quickly, then slowed. Lane. "Ah, yes, here you are." She hesitated. "You're at table H." Her tone changed just slightly, enough that I noticed. I tilted my head. "Where's that?" She offered a quick smile, clearly rehearsed. "Just outside the main ballroom, near the coat check." There was a moment, a quiet, chilly moment, when her words settled into the space between us. I glanced to my left where a large seating chart was displayed in golden script. I found Susan and David Lane, my parents, at the head table, seated right beside Lily and her fiancé Cole. I saw cousins, old friends, even the neighbor I hadn't seen since I was 12, all neatly inside. But my name? My name was nowhere on that chart. "It must be a mistake," I said, keeping my voice even. The hostess didn't flinch. "I'm afraid not. This is the assigned spot." She handed me a card with my name written in elegant cursive. I looked down and noticed something small but unmistakable. The name said Rachel with an extra A. Wrong spelling. There was also a space for a +1, left blank. "Of course," I murmured. I turned slowly toward the hall. The entrance to the main ballroom was flanked with candles and cream-colored flowers. Just inside, I spotted my mother standing beside Lily, adjusting her veil with care and affection. They were laughing, the kind of laugh that travels through generations of shared jokes and favorite recipes. My feet moved before I thought twice. "Mom?" I said softly. She turned briefly, her expression pleasant but distracted. "Rachel, sweetheart, we're a bit busy at the moment." "Just a second." I stepped closer. She sighed, stepping slightly aside. "Can we do this later?" "I was seated in the hallway," I said. My voice didn't waver, though I felt the heat rising to my cheeks. She blinked. "Well, yes, we had to prioritize close family." "I am close family," I said, more to myself than to her. Her lips curved in something between pity and dismissal. "You're always so independent. You don't mind." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. It was that kind of moment. The ones that stay with you longer than they should. Like that photo from my high school graduation, the one where I was cropped halfway out to make the frame work better. Lily had smiled center stage. I had smiled too, though only half of it made the cut. "Don't ruin the evening," she said, already half turned back to Lily. I stepped away, still holding the place card like it might change its mind. The hallway was bright but colder, less from the air and more from the way it lacked music, movement, meaning. The coat rack stood to my right, already holding 2 trench coats and a faux fur wrap. The table, Table H was a small round one with 3 chairs, one napkin missing, one chair wobbling. I sat down. No one noticed. From my spot, I could see everything but be part of nothing. Through the glass doors, the ballroom was a soft kaleidoscope of lights and gowns and sequined smiles. Someone lifted a glass in toast, and laughter followed like bells. I reached for the place card again, turning it over in my hand. Rachel Lane. Table H. The lettering was beautiful, gold and flowing. Someone had spent real money to make that card. It didn't matter that it got my name wrong. It wasn't just a table. It was a message. And this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. I used to believe being quiet meant being kind. Now I wonder if it just made me invisible. The hum of voices inside the ballroom had become a kind of distant music, like a soundtrack from someone else's life. I sat at my little table in the hallway, watching the silhouettes of guests raise glasses, hug, take photos. It was a strange place to be, close enough to see the joy, too far to belong to it. My fingers still played with the edge of the name card, Rachel, with an A. A small mistake, but somehow louder than it should have been, a mistake that felt familiar. My eyes caught a reflection in the glass of the ballroom doors, a flash of Lily's white dress, the tilt of her head as she laughed at something someone said. Her laugh sounded like a bell, sharp, pretty, and meant to carry. And suddenly, I wasn't at the resort anymore. I was back in Albany. Thanksgiving 2020. It had been one of those rare holidays when Lily wasn't home. She was in Portugal, I think. Or maybe it was Italy that time. She sent photos of sunsets and seafood, and everyone oohed and awed like she'd discovered a new planet. That year, the house had been quiet. I remember my mom baking 2 pies even though we only needed one. She said, "It's tradition." But I think maybe she just liked having something warm in the oven. She'd asked me to go find the old family photos, the ones she wanted to turn into an anniversary scrapbook for Dad. I was glad to help. It felt like something I could do, something that mattered. The hallway closet still creaked the way it did when I was little, like it was exhaling. I found the photo box where she said it would be. But before I headed back, I stopped in my old bedroom. The door still had the sticker that said, "Keep out" in faded blue bubble letters. I smiled at the memory, even if no one ever really knocked. The room hadn't changed much. Same twin bed with the checkered quilt, same old bookshelf leaning slightly to the left. I sat on the floor with the photo box in my lap and opened it slowly, like it might contain something fragile. And then I saw it. A small leather notebook tucked neatly into the drawer of Mom's vanity. I didn't mean to snoop, I really didn't, but I opened it anyway, maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of hope. The first page read, in her careful handwriting, "The day Lily started kindergarten, she didn't cry. She waved at me and ran inside like she was already home." I turned the page. Lily's favorite food right now is baked macaroni. She asks for it every Thursday. Page after page, story after story, Lily's fears, Lily's triumphs, Lily's drawings, birthdays, friends. It was a collection of love letters written over years. I kept flipping, slower each time. At first, I was looking for my name. Then I was looking for anything that wasn't Lily. I never found it. I sat there on the floor, notebook open, my hands gone still. The room felt smaller. Not angry, not bitter, just quiet, like I had always thought being. When I finally brought the photos back downstairs, Mom was in the kitchen. She smiled, wiping flour off her hands, and said, "Find them okay?" I nodded. I didn't say anything about the notebook. Back at the resort, a gust of wind passed through the hallway as someone entered through the side doors. It brought me back to now. The smell of cinnamon, cider, and expensive perfume settled in again. I looked up and saw Lily in the middle of a group near the bar, being hugged by one of Cole's aunts. Her laugh reached me again, though now it felt sharper. Then came a voice quieter than the rest. "You're not cold out here?" I turned slightly and saw Cole. He was holding a glass of water, no ice, and looked unsure if he should be talking to me. His tie had been loosened, and the corner of his shirt was slightly untucked, like the part he had already worn on him. "A little," I said, brushing my hands along my lap, but I figured I didn't make the cut for the VIP section. He looked confused and then uncomfortable. "I didn't know they put you out here." "Neither did I." He hesitated. "I'm sorry." I shrugged. "It's not your fault. You didn't draw the map." There was a pause between us. Not awkward, just quiet. He leaned against the wall beside me, looking into the ballroom. "It's a lot, huh?" "That's one way to put it." "I keep thinking I'm supposed to be overwhelmed," he said, "like it's a rite of passage, but instead I just feel like I'm watching a really expensive commercial." That made me smile. It was the first honest sentence I'd heard all night. He looked at me then, more carefully. "Can I ask you something? Not now, but later?" I wasn't sure what he meant or why it mattered, but I nodded. "Sure." I didn't know what he was going to ask, but I said yes. Maybe because it felt like the first honest question I'd been offered all evening. Maybe because, for a moment, I wasn't invisible. The chandelier above us sparkled like a crown, but underneath, the cracks were already forming. The night had grown cooler. The hallway felt quieter now, almost like it was holding its breath. I sat where I had for the past hour, next to the coat rack and under the faint flicker of fairy lights that had lost their warmth. Inside the ballroom, music drifted, something upbeat, designed to keep people smiling. It didn't reach me the same way anymore. I stared at the glass doors, not really seeing anything, just lights and shadows, laughter behind thick walls, and then I heard her. The sound of her heels clicking lightly across the tile came first, then the scent of her perfume, something sweet and expensive. Lily stepped out, glowing in her white satin dress like she had been carved out of a bridal magazine. Her veil fluttered a little in the hallway air. She looked surprised to see me still there. "Rachel," she said with a soft, amused tone, "you've been out here this whole time?" I nodded, not standing up. "Seems like it." She tilted her head, her smile carefully measured. "You're not still upset about the table, are you?" I looked at her, steady. "I'm not upset," I said. "I'm just disappointed that this still surprises me." Lily laughed gently, the way people laugh to show they're still in control. "You've always been a little sensitive, haven't you? You read too much into everything." That word again. Sensitive. The one they always use to turn my feelings into flaws. She sat down next to me on the edge of the bench, not quite touching. "You know, I've always envied how easily you disappear," she said, as if it were a compliment. I turned toward her. "And I've always envied how easily you fill a room." Her lips curled into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You had your own way of shining. Just quieter. People don't always notice quiet." I thought of something she said once when we were 16. We'd just come home from a school dance where she'd been crowned something. Most popular, best smile, I can't remember. I was sitting on the stairs, still in my borrowed dress, my feet aching. She walked past me that night and said, "You don't get love. You earn it." Maybe she believed that. Maybe she still does. Behind us, the ballroom doors opened. Cole stepped out, looking slightly flushed. He paused when he saw us. Lily stood up quickly, smoothing her dress. "There you are," she said to him. He nodded, then glanced at me. "Didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not," I said. "I was just checking if Rachel was okay," Lily added sweetly. "She tends to take things personally." I didn't say anything, but Cole did. "She's sitting in the hallway. Anyone might take that personally." Lily shrugged lightly. "She just can't let go of not being the favorite." It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it was sharp, and it cut through the hallway like a thin blade. Cole looked at her, then at me. "I'm going back in," Lily said. "You two have fun catching up." She turned without waiting for a reply. When the doors closed behind her, there was a silence I didn't rush to fill. Cole exhaled. She says things sometimes, and I let them slide. I nodded slowly. You're not the only one. He looked down at his phone, distracted. Then he frowned, reading something. His fingers tightened slightly around the phone as his eyes scanned the screen. Everything okay? I asked. He handed the phone toward me, just enough so I could see the message. From Mom. We need to talk. About Lily. Now I looked up at him, his expression unreadable but tense. She's always been charming, he said softly. But lately I'm starting to feel like that charm's a costume. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The message stayed on the screen, like it was waiting for someone to answer it. Like it had opened a door neither of us could close again. It wasn't long, but it was enough. Enough to know that maybe I wasn't the only one who'd started noticing the cracks. You think you know someone until you read the words they didn't mean for you to see. The second-floor lounge at the resort wasn't meant for confrontation. It was meant for quiet drinks and conversations too private for the ballroom. A place with dim lighting, deep leather chairs, and a soft hum of music that felt like it came from another time. Cole and I sat opposite each other, the silence between us filled with what we didn't know how to say. He hadn't looked at his phone again since the message. Neither had I. But it lingered. It changed the air around us. Then she entered. Margaret Bennett moved like someone who never needed to raise her voice to be heard. Her dark navy dress matched her composure. Her hair was pinned in a classic bun, not a strand out of place. But it was her eyes that did most of the talking. Sharp, intelligent, and entirely unamused. She didn't greet us with a smile. She simply nodded, pulled out her phone, and sat beside her son. I didn't want to do this tonight, she said, voice steady, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Cole looked at her cautious. What is it? Margaret turned her screen toward him. These came to me by accident. A friend of mine runs the studio Lily uses for fittings. There was a file transfer error. Someone clicked the wrong name on a cloud folder, and suddenly I had access to more than just fabric swatches. Cole hesitated, then took the phone. I watched his eyes move across the screen. Slowly at first, then faster. I didn't need to read the words to know they weren't good. His shoulders stiffened, his brow furrowed, and then his expression changed. Shock, followed by something deeper. Not just hurt. Disbelief. She said she was training me, he said quietly, like I was a dog. Margaret's voice remained calm. She called you sweet but easily guided. She said, and I quote, "Once the house is in my name, I'll deal with the rest." I didn't react outwardly, but something in me sank, not because it was surprising, but because it wasn't. I remembered something Lily once said when we were teenagers. I know how to make people love me, even when I don't mean it. Back then, I thought it was just bravado. Now I knew it was more like confession. Cole turned to me, voice strained. Did you know any of this? I shook my head. Not like this. He put the phone down on the table. It landed softly, but it might as well have been a thunderclap. I wanted to believe she was just stressed, that she snapped under pressure. But this is planning. This is cold. Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out a printed sheet. There's more. Screenshots of a conversation with a divorce attorney, dated 2 months ago. The room went quiet. Cole looked away, out the window. Down below, the ballroom still sparkled, unaware of what was unraveling upstairs. And then, the door opened. Lily stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by soft light from the hall. Her voice came sweet and steady. What's going on? Margaret didn't move. She simply turned toward Lily and raised the phone again. Why don't you tell Cole what you said about me last week? Lily's expression didn't change at first. She took a step in, eyes flicking to the phone, then to Cole. I don't know what that is, she said, still smiling. It's a message you sent to your stylist, Margaret said. You called me an old woman who writes checks and asks too many questions. Lily let out a small laugh. Margaret, come on. You know how girls talk when they vent. That wasn't serious. No, Margaret replied calmly. It was detailed. Lily turned to Cole, voice softer now. "You're not really taking this seriously, are you? This is a misunderstanding." Cole stood slowly. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, I saw something break in him. The trust, the picture-perfect image, the belief that love was enough. "You wrote that you'd make me dependent," he said, "that you'd pretend to be fragile so I'd never leave." Lily's smile wavered. "That's not what it looks like," she said, but her eyes said something else. Panic. The room held its breath, and I, sitting still in that deep leather chair, realized something else. I wasn't the only one who had been fooled. I wasn't the only one who had stayed quiet too long. In the middle of the perfect party, someone finally told the truth. The grand ballroom had never looked more elegant. Golden lights shimmered along the tall windows, casting soft reflections on the polished floor. The string quartet played something gentle, timeless. Waiters in crisp white uniforms moved like clockwork, refilling champagne flutes and adjusting candle placements. From where I stood, near the back by the dessert table, it almost felt unreal, like I was watching a play unfold, lavish, rehearsed, and utterly disconnected from the chaos upstairs that no one here seemed to know had already begun. But that was about to change. Cole stepped onto the small platform where someone had just finished giving a toast about love and lifelong promises. His face was calm, but too still, like a surface of water just before it breaks. "May I say something?" he asked, voice steady but low. The chatter dimmed. A few people turned, then more. Soon all eyes were on him. Lily appeared beside him quickly, her heels nearly silent on the floor, her smile frozen in place. "Darling," she said through her teeth, "what are you doing?" "I just need a moment," he replied. He looked at her, then out to the room, with Lily and her family. My parents were near the front, just a few feet from the head table. Mom's hand clutched a napkin, not because she needed it, but because she always needed to hold something when she was nervous. Dad looked confused, glancing between Lily and Cole. "I want to share something," Cole began, "not because I enjoy public drama, but because I no longer believe in protecting illusions." He pulled out his phone. My heart beat a little faster. He read slowly. "Once the house is in my name, I'll deal with the rest." A ripple moved through the room. Cole is sweet but easy to guide. A few tears and he folds. Someone gasped. The quartet stopped playing. Lily's voice cut in sharply. "Cole, stop. You're misunderstanding. Those were private. I was venting. Everyone does it." He didn't even look at her. "And this one, I just have to be perfect for 6 more months. Then I'll file quietly and be the victim." The silence grew heavy, settling over us like dust in an abandoned room. Margaret stepped forward from the side, holding a small stack of printouts. Her presence quieted even the whispers. "There are more," she said, voice calm, "all verified, sent by Lily. Over the past year, Rachel, you're not the only one she deceived. I didn't move, but I stepped into that thought like a warm bath. It was the first time I felt seen, not as dramatic, but as right." Susan's lips parted. David leaned toward her and whispered, "We never saw it, did we?" My mother didn't answer. Cole's gaze moved to Lily. "I can't marry someone who plans how to leave before we even begin." He pulled the ring from his finger and placed it gently on the table beside him. The sound of it, barely a click, cut deeper than any shout. Then he walked away. No theatrics, just quiet certainty. Lily stood frozen, blinking rapidly. "This is your fault," she hissed, turning sharply toward me. "You've always been jealous, always wanted to ruin me." People turned to look. Some tried not to. Others leaned in. I met her eyes. "I never wanted to ruin you," I said, my voice clear. "I just stopped pretending I was okay being invisible." Lily stared at me like she didn't recognize me, and maybe in that moment she didn't. Maybe she had only ever seen me as a background figure, a shadow at her feet. She opened her mouth again but found no words. She looked around the room, searching for sympathy, for support, for someone willing to step forward. No one did. Not Mom, not Dad, not even the neighbors who used to cheer at her school recitals. The air in the ballroom grew still. Even the candle flames seemed to pause. And for the first time in her life, Lily was truly alone. I didn't walk away because I was angry. I walked away because I was finally at peace. The morning after the party was quiet in a different way. No music, no clinking glasses, just the soft hum of the refrigerator in my Boston apartment and the drip of coffee into a mug I'd had since grad school. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, the city waking slowly outside my window. The sky was pale, almost white, and the leaves on the trees had begun to curl. October was doing what it always did, letting things go gently. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Susan. Can we talk? Just us. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was nothing cruel in the message, no blame, just a line, small and trembling. But I didn't respond. Not because I was holding a grudge, and not because I didn't care. I just didn't need to anymore. The second buzz came half an hour later, while I was buttering toast. Dad. I hesitated, and then I picked up. Hi, I said. His voice was quieter than I remembered. Hey, sweetheart. We didn't speak right away. I'm not good with these kinds of calls, he admitted, but I just wanted to say I should have spoken up a long time ago. I looked out the window. The light was hitting the corner of my building in a way that made everything glow. I appreciate that, I said. Another pause. You deserved better, he added. I let those words settle. They didn't feel like an apology exactly, more like an admission, a kind of truth he had been carrying too long. I'm not looking for apologies anymore, Dad, I said. I'm looking forward. We said goodbye not long after. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't dramatic, but for once, it was honest. After breakfast, I opened my laptop and booked a ticket to Maine, a little coastal town I'd been meaning to visit for years. I'd put it off every time for someone else's birthday, someone else's wedding, someone else's idea of family, but not this time. I packed light, just a weekend bag and a good book. Then I pulled open the drawer beside my bed, where the old notebook sat, tucked neatly between old letters and receipts. I held it for a moment. The pages still smelled like time, soft paper and dust. I didn't open it. I didn't need to read the parts that weren't about me again. This time, I just closed it firmly and slid it back into the drawer. Closure doesn't always come with confrontation. Sometimes it's just the choice to stop reopening a wound. Before I left, I walked down to the Charles River. The sun had just risen over the esplanade, and the light made the water shimmer like it had secrets to keep. Joggers passed me in fleece jackets. A couple sat on a bench, sharing a thermos of coffee. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills you with more than just air. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an old photo. A Christmas card from years ago, Lily front and center, smiling like the world revolved around her. Mom's hand on her shoulder, Dad standing stiffly beside them. Me? I was off to the side, almost cropped out, half a face hiding behind a paper snowflake. I looked at it for a moment, then folded it gently in half and slid it into the bottom of my bag. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is leave quietly. The morning I folded that old photo and walked by the Charles River, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt clear. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from choosing not to keep explaining. We spend years hoping the people we love will see us, but the real turning point is when we finally see ourselves. If this story made you pause, think, or even remember someone in your life, I hope you'll share your thoughts, because stories don't just end, they echo in the lives of those who hear them.